There's this assumption that there's an expected behavior that will just automatically happen when the situation arises. There's an expectation that, well, we've been dating for 4 years, so if someone's mean to me, they'll stand up for me. No, not necessarily. That's either both a personality and a awareness kind of mindset. Hey, so I'm Demon Dev, and I've been having a lot of conversations recently with people online, and I felt this way for a while, that really the full story is not out there about dating culture, or specifically how guys relate to girls within dating culture. So working on a dating game, and I think actually embedding some pretty complex interactions between guys and girls in the game, I thought I would comment on it and see what people think. So there's a very, I guess, compelling series of arguments coming from a lot of different angles at guys. I think traditionally you have something like an old school chivalry, or respect, upfront attitude where you're asking girls directly out on dates. And there's a lot of people who kind of heard that story from their parents or from their parents' parents and bought in immediately, because whether it was that way or not, it was a simpler time, and there's a lot that's appealing about that way of doing things. It does not match the modern landscape, and there's a better or worse aspect of that. But anyways, there's a lot out there, from social groups and the internet, that are still preaching that message, and many people have ran into that and have found that it's not working for them in one way or another. Now, there's a kind of counter argument to that, which you could think of as a stereotypical, like, player's guide, or, all sorts of different techniques on the spectrum of indirect to downright manipulative, in order to give yourself a better chance in the dating scene. And I think that's not the full story either. A lot of people get involved and they read or listen to, several hours and maybe hundreds of hours of podcasts or actual research on human psychology, social interaction. And they get a mixture of, well, anger for being lied to. Now, I'm going to get into why the lie wasn't really a lie about some of the traditional values, but maybe definitely misguided. So that's not all wrong. Anger is not unfair emotion in some, pieces of advice that you have acted upon. But the reaction is not the most unpredictable. The reaction is not correct either. So the reaction to, trying to be straightforward, I'm just going to specifically talk about guys facing girls, because that's speak to my own experience. So that makes the most sense, but also what I feel most confident about, which isn't surprising. Being straightforward has its merits. So, if the girl is into you, then that works. That's great. If she's on the fence, then it could go either way. If she's not into you, it's a little bit hard. I mean, it's always been hard. I would say in modern day, there are more avenues for that to be hard. I mean, you can approach her on different communication platforms. But anyways, to the counter argument. So the kind of like player's guide way of doing things would be to be more indirect, to, in a sense, appreciate some of the psychological elements that are working against you. Now, I experienced and sought out a lot of that research and expertise as well. There are some real things going on and some actual research backing up some of those ideas. But I think the conclusions are super toxic and also not true. And the combination, at the intersection of toxic and untrue is what kind of fills me with determination, I suppose. when you combine anger with sort of justification, then you're kind of adding fuel to the toxic mindsets of like negging or, gaslighting, all sorts of toxic techniques that I think guys may see short-term results for, but it's super toxic for them and the girl, of course. So what's the full opinion? What's the extra bit that I think is not being told? I think the extra bit is that there's actually a very legitimate justification for some of the complex attitudes and the back and forth nature of the dating culture at the moment. I'm not trying to say everything about the dating culture is magical, just that there is a rational reason. And as long as we're being toxic, assuming that we're being toxic, not everyone is, as long as we're being aggressive and stating how unfair it is, you also must see it from the other point of view where it's valid. So, for example, let's dive straight into the idea that, girls don't like nice guys or like guys that are mean. I think that's an extremely simplified, kind of immature way of looking at it. How about girls like guys that will stand up for themselves and for the girl in social environments? Have you ever been in a situation where there's a group of guys and one of them has a girlfriend, and one of the people in the group of guys is pretty rude or insulting to the girl, sometimes in such a way that it could make it a completely hostile or uncomfortable environment for them. This is a split-second decision where the boyfriend needs to decide what's important to them. Sometimes what's important to them is their friends that they've been friends with for years and years. Sometimes what's important to them is their girlfriend, but they don't know how to act. It takes a certain kind of aggressiveness and sometimes just downright meanness to react quickly. Sometimes your emotions are telling you things that you can't logically connect to the moment. All you know is that you just kind of don't like what just happened. And there is a reasonable appetite in women, weird way to say it. There's a reasonable desire in women for guys that, in a sense, will come out fighting. Yes, that could be negative in conflict with the woman. I'll go into the pros and cons of that, which is not simple either. But in friend groups, in social groups, and that goes for when the girl's around their own friends too, when you stand up for her around her own friends, that's really big too. That can be absolute one conversation, one guy in the group being like, wow, she's bad at this. Even though it's like her first time or whatever, it's just a random skill. If we were to cherry pick your random skills, you'd be look like a dumbass a lot too. The boyfriend reacting in that moment with a protective statement or, trying to rebound on the guy, and sort of a counterattack can absolutely be transformative in how someone feels in a environment. It's maybe a sad thing to recognize that in social groups you have moments like that where guns blazing, maybe doesn't seem like a big deal. Maybe the exchange only lasts 30 seconds, but respect is built slowly and lost instantly. And you have only an instant to respond, I believe, without people taking away the lesson. Oh, I can tease this person. Feels pretty good to tease this person. This person's high status. As social creatures, we really enjoy, and you see it across all, film, games, and other content. We really love to see high status people fall, and we really love to see low status people be elevated. So that is kind of a catalyst moment. So I really, as I've already done, I can't emphasize enough how important it is for both guys and girls for when they're being disrespected, especially in a group setting, for your partner to stand up for you, to be there for you, is transformational. And if a guy is nothing but nice, the girl has, before they're dating, in the very beginning, not even courtship, just saying hi. If the guy is nothing but nice and that continues for a long time, how can the girl be sure that that the guy will be there for her, and vice versa. I think a guy that is pursuing a girl who is nothing but nice and never teases the guy himself or other people should not be confident that they'll be there for them. There's this assumption that there's an expected behavior that will just automatically happen when the situation arises. There's an expectation that, well, we've been dating for 4 years, so if someone's mean to me, they'll stand up for me. No, not necessarily. That's either both a personality and a awareness kind of mindset priority system. This happens all the time, and we know this stereotypically within family environments, where if somebody's mom, say some guy's mom, is super rude to the girlfriend, happens quite a lot. If someone's mom is rude to your girlfriend, if your mom, someone else's mom, if your mom is rude to your girlfriend, then it's your job to make your stance known. If you sit there in silence, that is a betrayal, because that could be transformational on the relationship. People think that's just a one-time thing. It's not a one-time thing. One, it sets the stage, it sets the precedent for future, areas of disrespect. And then before you know it, you're like, I'm not sure how this happened, but my mom is regularly being rude and disrespecting my girlfriend, my fiance, my wife. If you don't step in at the early stages, it's not just going to resolve itself. People don't just get out their, hostility and that's it. It's always, it doesn't always get worse, but it's not going to go away on its own. And I have seen, you standing up for the people that you care about shows your mom, what is acceptable, what's not acceptable. You can tell them in a private conversation, hey, I really don't appreciate when you do this. But a lot of the time, and, I have some respect for the difficulties that, the mom goes through, but we're not going to care about that right now. If you go and have a private conversation with her on the side, that's very generous towards the mom. It's not super helpful towards, your partner. That is not proving to your mom or your partner, where you stand. If you challenge them in the open field of combat in the moment, that proves what matters. And sometimes it escalates, which is scary and a lot of people don't like. But one thing that you have done when that happens, even if it doesn't go as well as it could have, is you've shown really where your loyalty is, where your respect is, and what you believe is acceptable and not acceptable. So all of that comes into, do guys like nice guys? Do girls like nice guys? They do, but there's a condition. They also have to be mean. And if they're not, it's a risk. I know many, many amazing girls, women who can stand up for themselves. That's amazing. But if they have someone that loves and cares about them, they should be on their team side by side or also shouting down. Sometimes it's a group environment and they need fucking backup. And if you're not there for them, that's not cool. So anyways, so think about that. Let's not be toxic about the whole girls liking guys with, I think guys with complexity, nice, mean guys. Come on. We all have different moments where, we're filled with wholesome, encouraging energy. And we have moments where we're a little bit frustrated, maybe even at our partner, and a little bit of experience with how to orient yourself towards your partner when you're frustrated at them or with other things is not the worst thing. I think there is a completely healthy way to deal with conflict, and that conflict does not contain 100% nice and 0% mean. Now I think there's a huge difference between a sentence that just fundamentally will feel mean and a sentence that is constructed to inflict pain. That's completely different. But that is a nuance as far as the perspective watching other people interact that we should not be too overconfident about. You should not look at, a girlfriend and a boyfriend interacting and being like, oh, I can do better, obviously. How about there are pros and cons to the differences between you and other people? You are looking at a cherry picked snapshot. Are you necessarily comparing yourself to, the guy that you think is lucky um, during all the best moments? Maybe. If so, that would be maybe a healthier mindset. Um, what you see in public is not representative of the, I guess, greatest extent of the relationship. Of course, but people act like they know what's really going on. Now, there's certainly aspects of abuse that you can see, and that's very real. But you want to keep in mind that there's a mixed bag. Sorry, not an abuse. Abuse is always wrong. I'm not trying to muddy that water at all. But when something maybe makes you slightly uncomfortable, or maybe catches you on the fence a little bit, sometimes there is an upside to that. Sometimes a girl is trying to survive and exist in her own friend group. The sad reality is that most friend groups, maybe not most, many friend groups contain very toxic elements where people don't want to see you successful in your work, spare time, or in your relationships, and say some really damaging things, as only the people that are closest to you are capable of saying the meanest things. And maybe the girl hasn't chosen the best guy in other regards, but maybe that guy is for them where they need them most. Maybe that guy helps them recognize who are their real friends. Maybe that's a big deal. So yeah, maybe consider that there's a bit more complexity and nuance to some of these, psychological tricks that are presented in such an infuriating and sometimes compelling manner by different resources. There's many explanations, and not all of them, purely good. Some of them are frustrating, but it's not, it's not the way that the overzealous, kind of incels or incel leaning culture, there's not that far of a leap between, kind of player psychology and just quitting the whole thing or hating the whole thing as if it's personal. There are reasons that people act the way that they act generally. And it's not, a crazy random thing. It is actually psychologically possible for a girl to be into you one day and not into you to the next. And that's not unfair. We need to respect that social relationships, especially romantic or sexual ones, are very complicated and taking a lot of factors into account, and respect that, and not, be dismissive like, oh, they should accept the most pure, brutally honest, straightforward version of myself. What? No. Where has that been proven? That's super toxic. The most blunt, straightforward version, that's just you saying whatever comes to your mind without thinking. You might not even believe those things. I listen to people bullshit all the time. It's something we fall into because, well, modern culture kind of demands a nonstop, flow of conversation. I definitely tend to prefer conversation over silence. So people end up just kind of going off and saying stuff. And sometimes I'll be like, well, what did that person say? I'll drill into it, and they didn't mean it at all. So brutal honesty, can just as easily be toxic, word vomit. Like, you're saying stuff that could hurt the other person that you don't even mean. We should take responsibility for the things that we say and the possible interpretations. We're not going to get it perfect, but this whole, like, it shouldn't matter how this affects your feelings because came to me. Like I thought of it once, like even the brooding thoughts that you feel pretty certain about, maybe you should be more explorative with it and see, your friend, your partner's, the person you're interested's receptivity to it is not, or isn't the point of communicating with people having them accept or interact with our ideas? If that's the case, then brutal honesty is completely counterproductive. Why not present ideas or feelings in a way so that there's a better chance of them being accepted? People are annoyed by this, but that annoyance is toxic. You should respect people's own emotions. Maybe their brutal honesty is that they think everything you're saying is garbage, and that would hurt your feelings, but I was being honest. Okay? Well, maybe there's a reason for subtlety and a slower pace for interaction. I think that we are so frustrated by some of the lies or half truths we've been told about what's valuable in the, dating environment, that we overreact and are quick to burn some witches, set some things on fire, and maybe challenging the games isn't the worst thing, but using it as a platform to, I don't know, avenge your past grievances on someone is something I see happen a lot, and it's not right. So, anyways, some thoughts to think about. I have plenty, and I have integrated many of these into actual systems in the dating sim parts of Double Demon. So I'm really excited for people to interact with that and see, what that really means. Most of what I've been saying, maybe there's a few specifics, but has been mostly abstract. So in some ways it's easy to make that compelling or not convincing if you're, hardline against some of what I'm saying. But I look forward to getting into it more. Definitely feel free to drop comments if you have challenges, questions, or ideas about these subjects. I'm very engaged. So, have a good one.